Hey everyone, it's Louisa Munson. And this is my very first Feel Good Conversation. So welcome here today. Now with the Feel Good Conversations, the whole idea is just to have a good old chin wag and ask a few questions of some really cool guests with a real feel for uplifting content, refreshing content, anything to do with raising consciousness. So this whole show is about sharing ideas and thoughts and answering questions, all about consciousness. So I guess I should introduce my first guest, and I'm really delighted to have him on because it's somebody that I actually know. I know him personally. I've met him a few times, worked with him quite a few times. We work with each other. He's like my go-to energy healer. This guy, I first met him remotely when he was based in New York. He's now based in Lisbon, in Portugal. Though he works internationally via the medium of the internet and a phone call. He is an intuitive energy healer. And what he believes is that our lives and our experiences are all completely woven into our energetic matrix. So, for instance, all the things that happen to us on a day-by-day level, they come into us and they interact with our actual primal energy systems. And my guest can actually sense and see and feel those energy systems in place. And so he can notice that, as we move through life, we often pick up blockages along the way when we've had experiences or changed our beliefs about ourselves. And so he can see where our energy is constricted in places. And so what he's able to do with clients is to talk them through it really gently, how to release their own energy blockages and how to work with it and how to realign it, how to re-energize the energy system for each client that he works with. So it's absolutely my pleasure to bring on Mr. Scott Clover. Like I said, he's an international intuitive energy healer. He's also a good pal and he's a really great person to listen to. He's got a great story. So let's go meet him now, shall we? So it's my great pleasure to welcome on Scott Clover. Scott, how are you? It's been a while.
It's been a while. Yeah, I'm well. Thanks.
I was just thinking, last time we actually spoke, we were talking about energy systems, in particular, my energy systems, and there has been a big shift in those already. So I just want to thank you before we actually get going. So for the audience here today, I would really like to first zero in on how you first realized your ability to see, feel, and work with energy.
Sure. So I call myself an intuitive energy healer. And because of that, I name myself that because I see and sense energy patterns in and around people's bodies, in their fields, in their auric fields, in their ancestral patterns, or maybe their past life patterns. So energy to me is just a series of patterns, working cohesively or working sort of against each other. And when I notice that they're working against each other, and I can see that in somebody's body, then I have ways to help people clear those out. Somatic ways. I use a lot of metaphor, things like that. So in terms of me seeing energy, I sense it more. Sometimes I see the client in like a hologram. A lot of intuitive healers, especially when they start, they feel it in their own bodies.
Yeah.
And they say, oh, I feel it in my XYZ. And now do you feel that in yours? That's helpful, but it can be very detrimental to the receiver of that information. So if you are seeing 3, 4, 5 clients a day or 10 a week, you're taking on the 10 people's energies to tell them their story. So a lot of times for me, I'll just make it a hologram. And then it's easier for me to remain distant from it, like removed from it, and as well objective. Right. So if sometimes if a healer feels it in their body, then they have to process their wound from that era in their psyche and then process someone else's. So if you see it as a hologram, or the way I try to do it, and that doesn't happen all the time. Sometimes I still feel it in my body. But the large amount of times I prefer to see it as a hologram. And that came with years of practice and study. So I've been doing this about 7 years. I came out as an intuitive about 11 years ago, maybe more.
Yeah.
And that was a bit brutal coming out in middle age, having suppressed it my whole life. Not my
Tell me
whole
about.
life. I was a very intuitive child.
Uh-huh. Tell me about how did you know that you could do that? Or, how did you know to out yourself as an intuitive?
Well, it became undeniable after a while. So I was a very intuitive kid around 11 or 12 when most kids turn theirs off because societal pressure. I actually made a choice. I remember the day in the hallway in my middle school saying, "Oh, my peers are ostracizing me, or my teachers and the principals think I'm a little weird because I sense things or I see patterns and it wasn't that obvious back then, but there were just things about me and things that I knew that I shouldn't have known through
Mm,
just normal channels. And so I
yeah.
started feeling ostracized and I could sense that. And I just said, well, whatever's making me different in that realm, I'm going to shut it down. And I did. And I did a really good job. Um, up until I couldn't hold it in any longer. And it was pointed out to me in midlife in my late 30s that, oh, what kind of psychic are you? And I said, oh, I'm total denial. I'm not psychic. I don't want to know anything about it. And I really was in denial. I had made spurs, small interviews or looked into it for 15 minutes every couple of years and then got shy about it and went back away from it. And in my process of figuring it out these last decade or so, I realized that it's a family pattern. So my father, his father, they were also very intuitive. I think my grandfather, who drank every single day of his life, I think he was just trying to quiet it down, and because
Mm,
there were no words for it in 1910.
yeah.
Um, and then ultimately, I think my father resented it because it
Mm,
took his father away. So it was really not heralded in my family. Even my extended relatives sort of know that something's going on, but no one ever talks about it. And so I'm the first person in my family to really not only talk about it, but embrace it and then utilize it for, in my case, a profession. But
yeah.
my profession is to help people feel better. So I kind of like the fact that I've utilized it for that. And that was a decision I made. Knowing a little bit more about my abilities back when I first started thinking, oh, I should make a career out of this. I knew that I was channeling energy for healing. It was just very apparent. The things that in my training classes, it always turned into some sort of healing or energy therapy session. Whereas the other people around me were giving psychic readings, and that's not what was coming to me. What was coming to me were blockages or expansion potentials. And so I took that and really catered my studies to that. And I studied for years. I flew all over the country, met with masters, met with people I really respected. Um, some self-taught, a lot of, as I said, going through with other people who've been doing this for years. And then ultimately I started my practice 6 or 7 years ago. And it's been going really well. Yeah.
Of course, because your work is so good. Um,
Thanks.
Actually, I think a lot of intuitives can be quite self-styled because they know where to find the right people to hook up with, don't they? They tend to just find their own path, and it might not be a very straight, easy path. It often has quite a few twists and turns, but we often know where to get our information and our training from, who to trust in it. I've often found with my astrology sometimes, like when I've tried to do things formally, it just doesn't kind of feel right. But then all of a sudden, something will be triggered in me, and I'll know where and how to research it just the right time. So, did you become your first energetic client, really? Because you must have had a hell of a blockage in your energy system, having held back the reality of who you were, being an intuitive. You must have had yourself tied up in energetic knots, right?
Well, a lot of denial.
Yeah.
Um, a lot of what ultimately became sort of a perceived judgment or a boogeyman of judgment that I don't know where it would have come from, but it was definitely there. And now looking back, I'm like, oh, I pretty much know where it came from. And that was society not understanding. Or, in my case, being told I was being disingenuous or lying as a child because
Oh,
I knew
of
something I
course.
shouldn't know.
Mm,
That can be a real mind bend.
Yeah.
for kids, intuitive children who just know something's happening in their household, and then they tattle, but they're not tattling, they're just telling what they see.
Mm.
And so kids that go through that wasn't my case, but kids that are acted upon as if they're being, tattling, that can have a big impact. There you go. There's one. Um, of suppressing. Oh shoot! I
Yeah.
got in trouble for something I'm naturally inclined to do. It must not be
Mm.
good, or it must be
Yeah.
bad. And that's a
Yeah.
3 or 4 or 5-year-old making that
Mm.
assumption, and then it just becomes sort of rotted in and rusted in place until we intervene on it. We get out the WD-40 and the wrenches, and we really try to unrust and get those areas of ourselves back in working order.
Yeah. So I like your introduction of the tools that you use and the things that you see, the idea of the wrench or, get rid of the rust. How do you start to work with a client? When somebody wants to work with you, what's the first thing you do?
So generally, I ask them just basic questions about where they grew up, their family, how many people in their family. And just by getting those answers, their body to me sort of lights up in certain ways and says, oh, there's a block here, or there's an issue with the sister, or the grandmother is
Mm-hmm.
still causing some strife, even though she may have passed on. And that comes just by asking, maybe 10 basic questions.
Mm.
And then from there, I say to the client, okay, what do you want to do?
Mm.
Are you bringing something to the session today to say, oh, I'm struggling with my divorce, or I want a better job, or I don't speak my truth, or I don't speak my mind, or my throat chakra's closed down. Whatever they want to bring to the table, then we can work directly on that and where the root is.
Mm.
The other thing I say is, okay, if you just want me to scan your energy field and find what I call the largest elephant in the room. And I generally find a large energy coagulation or stagnation in the field, and then we talk about it. And I have ways of helping them expunge them for themselves.
Yeah.
So there's certain somatic technologies that I use. I use a lot of metaphor. As you know, because we've worked together, I will
Yeah.
make it very specific to your situation. It's not something I'm pulling out of the air. It's something rooted in what you're going through. And that metaphor will probably mean a lot more to you than it actually means to me.
Yeah. Well, it's
Yeah.
funny. I remember the very first session we had together, because it's like two intuitives working together. As I closed my eyes and was breathing, all of a sudden I saw you in the room with me. So, whilst you were scanning me at a distance, I actually felt you in the room watching me. And it was it was quite a shock for me. I guess at some level we were working in similar fields. And actually that's something that I noticed when you were talking then about how you work with people. You were saying you were listening to the client, but what I was also hearing is you're also listening to the body, aren't you? The body's talking to you, or the energy field of the body's talking, and you can hear it.
Well, I wouldn't use that exact terminology, but yes.
How,
What I would say is the body sort of lights up, and
so it shows you.
an architectural diagram presents itself in front of me,
Uh-huh.
and then I'm actually drawn to a part of the body, and then I start to ask questions. Why is that there? What age? Was there an accident that caused some misunderstanding in the
Yeah.
family? Was there a physical accident? For a lot of traumatized children, it's because they were thrown in the dentist chair at 5 and not told anything, and then given drugs and put under and come back out and something's missing.
Yeah, yeah. That happened to my dad, actually. He was telling me just recently that he was thrown in the dentist chair, knocked out, and when he woke up, all his teeth had been removed, which was a treatment at the time in the 1950s or whatever. Because his teeth weren't growing through strong. I think that's shocking. I can't believe anyone would do that to anybody. No
Well,
wonder
it's horrific in hindsight of what we understand about permission and boundaries and things like that we know now in the 2020s. Yeah, it's horrific to think back then that was happening. But those are the traumas that people just are expected to move on from, and their bodies are petrified, and to some degree, sometimes in inaction.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, that really links in. I was having a conversation with a guy who set up a nonprofit to do with helping people as they're going into operations and coming out of it. So he works with breath and mindfulness and stuff. So there's a lot of parallels. Though I recognize you as the intuitive, and he's doing it from a slightly scientific perspective. Not that yours isn't science, by the way, but you are obviously following what you see and hear and feel and what the body shows you. But one thing that he said was that the sites where a trauma, i.e. an operation, might take place, the site on that body holds on to the energy, and it holds on to the thoughts and feelings of the person that's having it, but also it seems to pick up the energy of the person doing the operation as well. So I guess where you are seeing people and working with people who've had sort of trauma or actual operations and things, you must be able to sense all of this captured in what you see.
Yes, I wouldn't say I capture all of it. I capture enough to be informed on how to help.
Yeah.
Because of the potential of my prowess, because my satellite dish is so large, and because I shut it down for all those years, I have a really strong muscular aperture to open and close it.
Right. Okay.
So I don't leave it open too long, so I don't sunburn my brain. And I don't shut it down to the point that I don't get any information.
Yes.
Meaning, because of the way I grew up, meaning I locked it away in a box for so long and had that strengthening muscle to close it off. Because I did that, it probably saved my psyche. A lot of the healers and things I've worked with over the last decade or so were like, whoa, if you would have expressed this in your whole adult life, you probably would have been institutionalized by, American or societal standards, because it would have gotten away from me. And because I kept it so close to myself or closed down, I now have the ability to make sure it doesn't go away. So I keep my intuition on a leash, if you will.
Yeah.
And that's because of the way I grew up, but it also protects me now as a practitioner.
Yeah.
So I strive to not pick up everything. I only want to pick up the pertinent things, because everything else is extraneous, and everything else becomes tedious to me to receive. And then the message might get diluted or lost. So
that makes complete sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And because I'm saying to the person who I'm working with, our goal together, our shared intention, healing in community, is to help you feel better. Then I want the information I receive to be in the paradigm of helping that person feel better.
Yeah.
Anything else to me is not necessary in the moment. And it's also meaning in my spare time, I don't go to the beach all day and sit around and be psychic.
Yeah.
I really close it down because I want to utilize it for when it's necessary.
Yeah, so you can go and have a normal life as well.
Not just a normal life, but I can continue doing this without a lot of mental and physical strain.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Because actually, I know a lot of psychics can't do that. A lot of people who are intuitive really can't do that, and I've struggled that with myself. So the focus that we're going to have for today is about life, love, and liberty, which I think is a lovely title, which you came up with. And I think you said this is the theme of the moment. So I'm guessing that's been coming up with you and your clients. So what I want to ask is, how do you notice these energy systems, in your clients? The energy systems of life, love, or liberty. Is it the lack of them? Is it the need of them that you're spotting? Or I don't know. Just talk to me about it.
Yeah, a lot of my work, my clients have dubbed me the energetic plumber over the years, because I really help people expunge things that are blocked in their systems.
Yes.
And so what I've been seeing or sensing is every couple months or so, a new pattern comes out that I see repeatedly in my clients that they want to work on as well. Their system says, oh, I want to work on this. And then I see that repeated in my work over the course of weeks or months. And in these last couple months, I have repeatedly said in my client work, life, love, and liberty. And how do you relate to those three things? And how do those three things relate to each other in relationship to you and how you're living? I'll give you an example. Change the order of those three words. Give me a different order of those three words.
Okay. Liberty, love, life.
Right. And so in your case, it would be something to the effect of you're looking for self liberation,
Hmm.
right? To love the life that you're leading.
Mm.
There's a
That sounds
lot
about
of
right. Yeah.
constrictions out there, governmental, where we live, you and I, has been really imposed a lot of shutdowns
Mm.
that we're not even supposed to go outside where we live for months and months on end now. And so you're craving that liberation to love your life again.
Yeah.
That would just be a microcosm of how those three words interlink and the
Mm.
placement of those three words. When I work with a client, I ask them to put them in order just randomly, but it's not really random.
Hmm.
Their brain puts them in certain order, and then we work through where their hoses are kinked energetically to
Hmm.
supply more chi or life force to those areas in their lives. And if you
Mm.
look at life, love, and liberty as a triangle, and you
Yeah.
toggle those words around, then we can find the direction or the flow of the energy to help them feel more liberated so they can love their life more.
Wow.
Or they
I love.
can live more so they can feel liberated, which then they will love more.
Mhm. Wow, I'd never thought about the distinction of that, because to me the three words just seem kind of synonymous with each other. Because for me, life is a life of freedom, and for me, life is about love. Because when I look around everything that's living, it's an expression of love. That's how I see it, anyway. Um,
That's your mandala. You were asking about
yeah,
different energy patterns and different
yeah.
intuitives and things.
How would you
And
put? How do you see those? Having been locked down for months as well. What's your take on those?
um, my take is liberation of the life force is the way I would personally take it. Liberating of the life force, meaning I now get paid to do something that I really adore doing.
Mm,
So I'm very grateful to be able to have honed these abilities that I have that
yeah,
historically were very detrimental in my family or perceived detrimentally. To me now being able to encourage not only my clients, but other people. I have a podcast where I talk about a lot of the things that I would want to have heard about, trying to understand what was happening to me all those years ago.
yeah.
When my
So,
intuition came back with a vengeance, seeked out, I looked for a lot of different resources. And so
mhm,
I'm trying to compile a lot of what I learned in these podcasts that I give, because I want other people to feel like they're not alone.
mm. So, how do people find your podcast then? Tell me a bit more about that. So,
Oh,
is
it's
there?
called the Intuitive Energy Podcast. It's on Apple, Spotify, a bunch of the other services.
Mhm,
The Intuitive Energy Podcast, and as I said, I talk about things that I think I would have wanted to have heard someone talk about,
yeah.
and not in isolation. I talk about varying things, not just the chakras,
Mhm,
um, but I talk about things that I do personally as an energy practitioner to protect myself.
yeah.
One thing that if people out there are sensitive to their energies, they can get some witch hazel and lavender oil
Mhm,
and put it in a glass spray bottle, just a bottle of witch hazel with a couple 15 drops of lavender oil, and just spray it on your hands and put it on your neck or behind your ears. And it really can calm down, especially if you're a practitioner with your hands or Reiki or one of those. Even with you picking up all that psychic energy from your work,
yeah.
that witch hazel is a nice psychic astringent.
Mm,
Um, that would just be one of the tips. But there's a lot of that stuff that I had to learn along the way as an energy sensitive person to make me feel more stable and stay stable so I can keep working with my clients in the way that I do.
mm. So, who are most of your clients, Scott? How do they? Who are they? Where do they come from?
I don't
Tell.
advertise, so it's
Mhm,
word of mouth.
yeah.
It's mostly all referrals,
Mhm,
and it's such a varying degree. I have 20 somethings up into people in their 70s releasing energy blockages of, maligning things that happen to them. A 70-year-old that is still releasing some sexual trauma from their childhood. That's an amazing thing to behold.
mhm.
The liberation of that for people, that they can love their life again. And and
Yes.
and one of the aspects of that love, life, liberty is forgiveness. Not just forgiving someone who perpetrated something against you, but forgiving yourself. Whether
Mm,
you fell victim to something or you feel the victim of someone else's atrocities, forgive yourself for feeling that and then move on. Find some gratitude, and then love will be able to be accessible again.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, well, I can absolutely, testify to your amazing skills, because every time we have had a session together, something has shifted really palpably. In particular with my business, I'm very cautious about having a consultation with you, because I have to absolutely be ready for the shift. So
Afterwards, yeah.
after the first two shifts I had, they literally happened within a day or two of each other. And so I remember thinking about another session, and I was thinking, I'm not ready yet, because I don't have the energy for that shift. So then it's like, right, it's time to like speak with Scott now. Yeah, I've noticed profound shifts each time, and I've been taken on quite trippy voyages as well, because I'm so intuitive as well. So I've had an out of body experience with you and all sorts of different things. So yes, you are
Yeah,
rather good.
yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. I would say the lion's share of my clients are fellow intuitives who
Yeah.
may not have understood it in themselves, or are practicing intuitives that just need their own help and guidance, which I believe we all do. I mean, I get
Yeah.
acupuncture every week to make sure that I align my body energies the way I like to do it. But I think of ourselves as mandalas of energy. And we all are different. All of ours have different colors, facets, like a stained glass window. And when intuition comes through your personal mandala, then we receive information in that way. And no two mandalas are the same. That doesn't mean that two intuitives can be similar to one another, but the information and the type of information that people pick up is very individualistic. And that's okay. So a lot of my clients come to find me after talk therapy, for example, and are like, "Oh, like you speak my language. Like why haven't I been doing this for years?" And so they switch over from a therapy standpoint to more of an energy standpoint.
Yeah.
And then there's other people who are empathic and don't know how to deal with it, or very creative and their creativity is stifled. Those clients I really like to work with. And then the other cornerstone of my practice is trauma release and PTSD, things like that. Either childhood trauma, pre-verbal trauma that gets stuck in the body, or anything from the age on. And that's where the intuition comes in. So the client can say, "Oh, I'm feeling blocked at work because of this," and what I'll actually see is a contraction at 8 years old when you were bullied, for example. Bullying is a prime example of something that gets trapped in the body and can't get unstuck without some intervention.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. When you were talking about, you have a lot of intuitives that
Yeah.
sense that maybe something's blocked in them. Do you think that the more intuitive you are, possibly the more you notice sort of energy blockages or something not being right? Is it like the people with the most freest energetic patterns? Do you think they notice when something's wrong first? Or I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, are people in stuck systems able to recognize that they're in a stuck system?
No, I would say habitually no.
Yeah.
And I've been getting this image these last couple of days of, imagine playing chase with like a child in a large car park that has those big pillars, and the child's on one side and you're on the other, and you run left, they run right, you run right, they run left, and so you never catch up to each other.
Yeah.
A lot of our subconscious is placing these hindrances, or this obfuscation energy, that it's always in the corner of your eye, but you can't see it. There's something wrong, but you can't put your finger on it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's that obfuscation, of that game of hide and seek that people come and see me for, because I'm the one that can go behind that wily energy and say, "Hey, just stop. Let's observe you."
Yeah.
And in that observation, then 55% of the healing's already happening. Because before a session, you may not have even seen it, so you don't know what's wrong. It's like going to the doctor and saying, "Fix me. I'm ill. Why? What's wrong? I don't know." Well, the doctor won't be able to do that.
No, but the intuitive can.
Well, the intuitive, in my case, can call it out, and then I guide you to do the healing work. Yeah.
Yeah.
I find the efficacy of that lasts longer. It's more palpable to the client. than if I just sit and say, okay, I'm going to take this energy out of your body. I'd rather guide you in certain specific and metaphorical ways to do it, because it becomes real to you. You felt it happen in your body, not just me extricating it energetically, because then it might come back without your intervention. So the sitters, the person I'm sitting with, I'm more inclined to encourage and embolden them to clean it out for themselves, because then it's more real and the experience is not deniable the next
Yeah.
day.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So given that you're guiding people on how to clean out their own energy, what practical steps could people take right now if they're listening into this broadcast? You know, what steps could they take right now to create some ease or to create a feeling of life, love, and liberty?
Sure. I think the easiest one would be, and you can do this alone by just listening to this or doing it afterwards, is if you close your eyes and you
Should I do
bring your awareness. You can do it now if you want. And just, it's
that?
very simple, and people have been doing this for eons, but you just close your eyes and you feel the difference of the skins of the bottom of your feet and the socks you're wearing, or the carpet you're on, or the floor you're on. Just feel that connection of the bottom of the skin of your feet to whatever it's touching.
Yeah.
And then from there, engage your childhood imagination, where creation and imagination meet, and create large tree roots burrowing out the bottom of your feet through the floorboards,
Yeah.
through the structure you're in, and really imagine those roots connecting to the earth. Ooh, there, you just did it.
Yeah.
And then the simplistic way about this is do a body scan. Just scan your energy body. And if you've got tension in your shoulders, or if you've got a lower hip issue or a knee issue, take that energy and send it down your body into the root system, into the earth, and send it away from you. Decide to separate from it. Make the choice that you're draining it out into the roots.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, take a breath. And I use the word choice here, and choice is the guardian of choice, archetypally speaking, is the saboteur energy. How do we sabotage ourselves? By making choices for other people instead of ourselves first. Now, I'm not advocating becoming selfish for people who aren't selfish, but at least advocate for your own energies.
Yeah.
Put yourself on the top 3 of your list at some point, and see what it's like to be up there.
Yeah.
And you were talking about body energies earlier, and you were gesticulating a lot around your breasts.
Oh,
And one of the you when you were going, you were gesticulating like this,
my
and
breasts are
so
very active because I'm still nursing. Not one
exactly, you're still nursing.
child,
Exactly. So one of the things I do for like empty nesters,
two.
mothers, for example, whose kids are 17, 18, 19, and are leaving the house or later, is we get them to reincorporate their breast energy back into their body. Because
Oh,
you
wow.
said, the person interacting with that energy, well, how many of your children have nuzzled and drank out of your breasts over the years? And so there's an exercise 3 for you, 3. There's an exercise I do for women who've passed breastfeeding or empty nesters, to get them to reincorporate their breast energy, their femininehood, if you will, back into their body, so it self-presents as one unit, not 2 separate units. So they reclaim their breast energy, because it was utilitarian for so long, or what seemed like so long for them.
Yes. Yes, I will be calling on you for that exercise for sure.
So that would be an example of how energy is somewhat universal for people, in that's something a lot of mothers go through, is this separation of your mammalian or breast energy to your body.
Is there a male equivalent of that? How does that work? Like for empty nester men, do men contact you about that?
Um, Men contact me more for not being able to express that they're energetic beings.
Right.
Middle-aged men who work as plumbers or accountants or electricians call and say, I've got stuff going on in my body, or I pick up the senses of my coworkers, and can you help me understand it? Or some people have like, I want to change my profession, or I want to do something, men, and they'll have a layer of fear, subcutaneous, that they hold like right underneath their bodies, right underneath their skin. And that actually blocks them from moving forward. And that's just our machismo society claiming that men have to be in a certain paradigm or else they're not worthy.
Yeah.
And so that can be a real mind meld or mind bend for men as well.
Sure. Yeah, I can imagine. Oh, I'm feeling really relaxed actually from rooting myself there. And I did go into a little thing whilst I was listening to you. I felt like the sunlight coming on my leaves because I obviously became a beautiful tree and it felt really great. So thank you very much for that. Where do you think energy work is going now, on planet Earth? Like, do you think the kind of work you do is ever going to, I mean, it might already be integrated into some form of medicine, but do you see where it might lead? Do you think it might be something that people learn about at school or?
So intuition, those are two, I think, a couple different questions.
Yeah,
Different parts of the
sorry.
world,
It was a bit of a
different parts
struggle to get that one out.
different parts of the world experience intuition differently. Like in England, for example, it's much more accepted and common to talk about it than it is in America. In America, it's behind closed doors and hush hush, whereas there's even some schools that teach it in
Wow.
in in the British Isles. So it's a little more open over there. In different parts of the world, it's really closed down.
Mm.
Um, and if you look at that historically, from an energetic pattern, a lot of it is if you had a past life of being in somewhat of an intuitive, you were burned at the stake as a witch, or you were ostracized, or you have dreams of yourself being murdered as a man or the opposite sex of what you're actually in because of something happened that you were a heretic.
Mm.
And so that energy is still palpable for people like us, I would say, if it's a repeating life pattern. That's one thing. But it's coming out of the shell, for one. And one of the things is talking about it openly.
Mm.
If you look at different societal waves, the gay community
Mhm.
started talking and saying, we're out, we're here. And just
Mhm.
in 30, 40 years, we now have gay marriage.
Yeah.
Right. So if intuitives start to bond together, because most of the intuitives I know sit in their house by themselves and don't interact with many people.
Well, yeah, a lot of them are empaths, and so they find interacting with other people a bit troublesome, don't they?
They can, exactly. And so that's an issue in that there's not a
Yeah.
lot of first chakra tribe bonding in
Mm.
the energy community because we're all, not all of us. I try to strive and meet others in my field. And still go outside and have social outings when it's
Yeah.
permissible.
Yeah.
Um, but that comes to, I don't want to be a 24/7 psychic. I don't want to be an intuitive 24/7. I want to utilize it for good and then live my life on my off hours.
Yeah.
Um, but where is it going? It's going to more people like us talking, bonding together, creating a first chakra tribe, and then other people gleaning onto that tribe and creating a density.
Mm.
And once that density then holds enough individuals talking about it realistically and pragmatically and not dogmatically, that's something personally, as I don't deal with dogma very well. I wasn't raised with it. And when I started seeing energy pattern doesn't have a lot of reason to attach to dogma. A
Mm.
dogma has a lot of reason to attach to energy patterns,
Yeah.
but not the other way around. And so I'm very practical in my work. I'm not dogmatic, and I'm hoping that more people out in the burgeoning community will take on to that. Dee Wallace, she's a famous actress. She was E.T.'s
Yeah.
mom.
Yeah. I've
She
just
she
seen
talks
her.
about energy. She's
Yeah.
great. She was one of the resources I used when I first started introducing myself to this.
Hmm.
But she has a book out with a co-worker called "It's Just Energy,"
Hmm.
something like that. And it is. It's just energy working, flowing or not flowing,
Hmm.
vibrating or not vibrating, either higher or lower. And that tells a story. And then
Hmm.
you find someone that helps you filter that story into your own life and make a metaphor, as I said, or an analogy to help you understand it from an energetic level. Then you observe it, and that's
Hmm.
when the healing begins.
Yeah.
But that healing should be coupled with self esteem. If you want the healing, if you observe a pattern, as I said, that's 55% of the issue, you
Mm.
still got 45% of the way to go.
Yeah.
And a lot of easier ways that you can glean that 45% is to engage your self esteem. Let go of the judgment of you and others from your childhood and from your current life and whatever. Stop judging other people, and hopefully that boomerang won't come back and hit you in the head.
Mm.
And then you're going to find some self esteem. And
Yes.
that's where the healing lies.
Mm. I love that. What I'm hearing from you is that you are practical. You know, that it has to be practical. It has to lead to some kind of resolution or outcome or a step in the right direction. And I love what you were saying about people coming together, tribes. You know, I'm aware of lots of intuitive tribes, but they really meet at the intellectual, like you were saying, at the sort of dogma level, you know, and less so at the very root chakra, you know, the actual sort of physical bonding. So what I'm really hearing is this kind of need to almost bridge what comes through intuitively with the reality on earth, you know, the sort of combination of um, bringing the light into the density or raising the density. I don't know which way it works exactly. Would you would you say that's kind of how you work in being practical and
Yeah,
grounding?
and whimsical as well. I'm also very whimsical in my work. I'm not a robot, right? We
Yeah,
laugh sometimes, we giggle, and that's part of the metaphor work. That's
yeah,
part of describing and using imagination in the
yeah.
energy work.
I seem to recall some multicolored unicorn glitter gel that
Yeah,
I once used in a session with you, and I actually gave the idea of that glitter gel to one of my friends who loves unicorns, and she uses it on herself all the time. So
yeah. If you can create it in your imagination, then it's being created on some
yeah,
varying aspects of this realm that we live in. And if
yeah,
two people share that imagination or that metaphor, that makes it more concrete and more real.
yeah.
That's
So if
that
somebody,
healing and community tribe thing I'm talking about.
yeah,
The more intuitives and the more people that work in these fields get together and stop judging each other for what they don't do and accepting each other for what they do,
yes,
um, then this movement that you were referring to earlier is going to get a lot stronger footing faster.
mm,
But to be clear, the powers that be, the energy blanket that covers our society, does not want that to happen. Whether
yes, I
that's
that.
whether that's on purpose or just because it goes against the natural flow, that's for you to decide.
I made my decision on that one
Oh, I
already.
know you have. And that's why I say go back to the individual, go back to yourself and live appropriately.
Mm,
The way you see life through love and liberty, and that's the desirous vibration, then
yeah,
maybe your neighbor will pick up on that a little bit. Or maybe somebody that listens to this will pick up and say, oh, I want to be a little more like that.
mm,
Then there's a shared bond of sharing a higher vibrational uh, lattice, if you will.
mm.
And then from that lattice, we can start to build vines and community.
Love it. I'm going to start wrapping this up. I've got three more questions for you, if that's
Okay.
okay. Um, I want to get a bit creative in this one. You were talking about the energetic blanket that might be over humanity. I'd like to ask you, what energy does Gaia have, or like the earth, whatever you want to call the earth? Um, if you're reading energy, if you can see the energy in humans as they present themselves, can you read the energy of Gaia? What's there at the moment?
I can, and I think you asked me this last year too. I choose not to. No, that's okay.
Curious.
there are friends of mine that go and sit on a satellite, or they go and sit on Mars and the moon and look down at the Earth and watch it breathe.
Yeah.
I have done that, but it takes a lot out of me. Well, I don't know if it takes a lot out of me, but it's not something I want to utilize my skill set for, because I want to utilize it during my client work.
Yeah, sure.
And so it's not a scapegoating answer. Yes, I can do that. I choose not to.
Okay.
Because the one little guy perceiving it, I don't feel like me perceiving it is going to have that much of effect. But if I can concentrate that energy and utilize it to help an individual, or 7 or 10 individuals, then those 7 or 10 healed or more individuals that are holding more self-esteem, that will multiply out. So I choose to do it like from the exponential side of helping 10 people a week. Then those 10 people feel better, so they don't get mad at 10 other people. So there's more of a radiation or like a puddle dropping out, rippling effect, if you will.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a great answer. That's an amazing answer. Okay, so if someone listening in right now is thinking, wow, Scott sounds rather excellent, I'd like to work with him. What's the best way for them to connect with you?
My website is my name, scottclover.com. There's the podcast they can listen to understand a little bit more of my perspective, where I'm coming from. I don't talk so much about somatics in that I consider myself a somatic healer. Somatics is corporeally in your body. Yeah. So I'm an intuitive energy healer, but a lot of the somatic technologies that I work with in my client work, I don't talk about on the podcast, for example, because they're very individualistic. It's like that session we just did with you, or anyone that was listening. Instead of you doing the body scan and releasing that energy into the earth, I would do the body scan on your behalf and tell you where you were very coagulated, and whether that coagulation, you're hiding from it because it's too fearful to face.
Yeah.
Alone. Well, then you face it with me. It's like cleaning your closet. No one wants to clean your closet by yourself. You invite a friend over, you get a bottle of wine or some chocolate, and you invite your friend over, and you have your friend, and you help each other clean the closet. It's so much easier to do that than it is to do it sitting in this closet and overwhelming you by yourself, that you just end up not cleaning it out.
Okay, cool. Okay, so last question then. What one last thought would you like people to take from this conversation? If there's one thing that you thought could be of use to people, what would that last thought be? So
going back to the theme of life, love, and liberty, or liberty, life, and love, however you want to see it for yourself.
Or love, liberty, life.
Exactly.
Love, life.
Well, it's going to tell us the way you place it in your mind or on a piece of paper. You can make a Mad Lib and make a connection story to see where your blockage is if you do that.
Wow.
But I would say, in regards of that trifecta, the life, love, and liberty, notice where you judge others. Notice where the judgment of others from childhood and currently, if you live in a very tight-knit community or a cul-de-sac that has to have hedges a certain height.
Yeah. Curtains twitching.
Yeah, exactly. Then notice how that judgment is affecting you. Because you're going to notice it's probably not advantageous to hold on to judging others and to hold on to the judgment of others. And when you figure out where that judgment, those judgment bonds are made, and you can weaken them, then life, love, and liberty is a lot better of an exercise, or an easier exercise to do.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today. I really loved it. I always love chatting with you. Thank you so much, Scott.
It's my pleasure. Anytime. Happy to help.
Catch you another time.
Yeah. Bye. Thanks, everybody.
Cheers, everyone. Oh my God, that was amazing. So I've just spent the last sort of 10 minutes having a good old chat with Scott as well, and just catching up. And I really enjoy his energy. I was just telling him about how my life has changed since my last reading, because or the last time I worked with him. So we were actually going to record this last week, and he wasn't feeling so good. And so he turned the tables on me and said, look, come on, I don't feel up to an interview, but let's work on you, Louisa. So I explained to him that I was feeling really kind of troubled in finding a place to live. I haven't seemed to have found a home. And you know, my need to feel really settled has just got stronger and stronger and stronger. And I've got 3 small children, a lovely husband. We've got 2 dogs and 8 chickens, and I really want to find a place where I can grow my own vegetables and really feel like I can settle and not have anything kind of disturb me, disturb my flow. And he put me through a very simple exercise that I just went through earlier in this show. And obviously other things showed up. And 2 days later, we got a phone call from somebody almost begging us to come and have a look at this house. And we're moving in 2 weeks. So I was just sharing that with him. So his work is really good. I can absolutely advocate for it. Yeah. And so I just want to thank you really for joining us today. If you've enjoyed listening to Scott, don't forget you've got his podcast that you can find. If you type in the Intuitive Energy Podcast, you should find that on Apple and also on Spotify. Remember, you can also go to his website, which is www.scottclover.com. So you can make a connection with him. If you've enjoyed this chat and want to hear more, then please do subscribe to this channel. You can always use the handle Louisa Munson or Feel Good Astrology, and you should be able to find my work. But these Feel Good conversations are going to be released at least once a week, every Sunday, with a potential of there being an extra Thursday one. Because at the moment, I'm recording so much. We've got so many more conversations to come. But anyway, thank you so much for your energy, for your love, for your time today. Lots of love. Please do feel free to share and comment. And yeah, get in touch if we can be of any help whatsoever. Lots of love to you. Bye for now.
Yeah.